All right, today will be revision, and as you may have known already, is the easiest part about grammar is actually the punctuation, which is not really to grammar. It just know how to use the right symbols at the right time. So firstly, will be punctuation. So far, we have learned, according to the grammar in a nutshell that I've sent you, so far we've learned 5 fundamental fields of punctuation. Firstly is the apostrophes. Secondly is the comma. Thirdly is the semicolon. And this colon, and this is the same on the SAT as the period. Okay, so from now on, when you see the semicolon, replace, if you're not really familiar with the semicolon, just replace it with a period. That's how you're gonna do it from now on the SAT at least. And what else? M dash, dashes, and colons. So in this case, I'm going to reorder this a bit so that we can know which one is corresponding to which. So I'm going to move colon up to comma, and I'm going to move dashes also to comma. Why is it? Because colons and dashes, they both share the same use as a comma. A comma has a functionality to list, to create a definition, to supplement a content to an information. And that is precisely how a colon and a dash can be used as well. So in some cases, you can see that dashes, they are basically the same thing as a comma. For example, with the exception of relative clauses, I'm going to give you an example. She who went out knew me. You can't use dashes in place of these commas because this is a relative clause. And if, say, there's a scenario like this, you planted a tree, an oak tree. See, this one, on the other hand, can only be used with a dash because dashes has something that commas do not. Commas do not. Is that it can be used at the end of a sentence to supplement something that hasn't been mentioned, to sort of make an emphasis, to emphasize on the last part of the sentence. So when you give a dash in this way, it seems like you are sort of creating some announcement to enunciate what you are saying at the end of the sentence. This use is similar to the colon. This is a colon, and semicolon is half colon, half comma, right? So recap, when you see dashes and colon, you remember that they share some similarities to commas, but they can be used at the end of a sentence, whereas comma cannot. And semicolon, period, they're the same, and apostrophe, there are only essentially 2 uses for this. Firstly, to concatenate 2 be verbs. She's can be written as she is, or she's, or Henry's book. Here are the 2 uses. Firstly, it can be used to concatenate 2 be verbs, and secondly, it can be used to indicate ownership. And let's move to joint ownership and individual ownership because it can be very confusing at first if you don't know what it is. Firstly is, if say I have 2 houses, right? 2 houses and a couple, a husband and wife. what do you say that who owned the house? But who do you think owns the house?
So,
Who do you think owned the house?
husband?
Husband? Only husband? So wife, she does not possess any house?
No, technically she does.
All right, so technically she does because they are in a marriage. So if I say that there's a husband and there's a wife and there are two houses, that means these houses, in most cases, so we're going to generalize, make a wild generalization here, but in most cases, it would be that the husband and the wife, they both own a house, right? So they both stay in one in these properties are most likely to be theirs at the same time. So these two people own the same thing. And we can rewrite this as Tom and Emma Holmes, right? So if I separate these two people, if I say divorce them, and these Tom and Emma, they are no longer together and they have to separate these houses, what can I end up with? Can you say it? Can you make a guess? Right? Can you make a guess of what will turn out?
Mm,
What do you think? Do you know how it would turn out?
mm, yes.
Then please do explain. What do you think? If they own two different houses, if they do not share the same house anymore,
If they don't share the same house anymore, what do you mean?
listen, we are focusing on the apostrophe,
Yeah.
right? The apostrophe. So how can we change it in terms of the apostrophe?
Mm, how can
All right. Vink, do you have any idea? Do you have any suggestion?
I think uh, we uh, we will add uh, apostrophe to Tom's house and Emma's house.
All right. So when I say that's basically the gist of what I'm coming at. So if say, and that's correct, congratulations. If say Tom, Tom and Emma, they both share the same house. You can say that Tom and Emma's houses, but if they are separated, I'm going to separate them also and their properties. And so I'm going to say Tom's house and Emma's house, right? This is how it's going to turn out. And then we're going to combine it together. And to make one sentence only, in English, we have Tom's and Emma's houses. Okay. They have two houses, and these people do not share the same house. So I'm going to add an apostrophe to the end of each subject. Whose ownership is not shared. Okay, so if I say I have three people and two houses, that's the same thing. It doesn't matter who shares the house with whom, but the only thing that matters is whether or not they share the same house, whether or not they stay in a same house. Okay, this is what we would call a joined. I'm going to change the ink so that it stands out. This is a joint ownership. And this is what we call an individual ownership, right? So if I'm going to give you an example, this time I'm going to ask like if you think this is individual or joint, right? Firstly, I'm going to give the books were published on two different dates to not conflict with each other. Any poems, poets, any poets, sorry, any poets friend. So if I'm about to write this as Tom and Elaine books, right? So if I write this, is it true, or I should have written it as this? All right, let's start off with Bike. Do you think the first one or the second one is correct?
The first one.
The first one. All right. How about Ving?
First one.
Okay, but can you tell me why you chose the first one?
Because the first one is separate, like they're separate.
Why are they separate? Why do you think that they are separate to each other? That they are not the co-authors or something?
Because they have like astropathy. So like the second if first one is separate, like the second one shows like they're like together, like as one.
Yes,
No.
if the second one is true, then Tom and Elaine, they are both the author of the same books. But in this case, are they the same or the author, or are they not the author of the same book?
They are not,
Why do you say so?
because on wait like I because the books were supposed to be like so they like mm,
You know why? Here, look. This you have to rely on the context. So it's not always that people are going to say, look, rewrite this as a joint ownership or rewrite this as an individual ownership. It rarely ever it will be the case, right? So you have to rely on the context. In this case, the books were published on 2 different dates. Firstly, that's the first clue. So one person can publish 2 books at 2 different dates. That's normal. But the latter part will indicate that any poet would know best not to fight with his friend. So this is talking about, firstly, Tom and Elaine, they are both poets. And secondly, Elaine is Tom's friend, and Elaine is the author of the second book. So you can see that you have to rely on the context in order to know if they have to share ownership or not, right? You understand this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So next up will be that's it for the apostrophe, and I'm going to move on for the commas. Commas. First, Living, can you tell me about commas? When I talk about comma, what is the kind of grammar that I have to pay attention to? Do you know? This is a hint.
It's run-on.
What's that?
Run-on.
Exactly. Can you explain me what run-on is?
It's about the 2 clause is not dependent. It's
So independent clauses and how are they going to create run-on? Here's the key. Is this an independent clause? An independent clause is, you don't really have to care about the meaning because an independent clause is essentially a full clause. That's how it should be named. But in this case, they are called an independent clause. And for a dependent clause, it is not a full clause. So it doesn't make sense on its own. All right. So is this an independent clause?
Use pronouns to
Pronouns. This is an independent clause, all right, because it has both subject and verbs. So any clauses that share subject and verb, we would consider it as an independent or a complete clause. So it's not just independent or a dependent clause, but run-on happens when 2 clauses are separated by a comma. So here, Dian said that you can use fanboys, right? Do you know fanboys?
Yes.
Can you list it for me?
For,
but,
and
yes, and
now.
What? No, right?
No, yeah. But or are
or why
yet
and as
since
so, right?
So
for and nor but or yet so. If you combine this with a comma, it will become a semicolon, or it will become a period, right? So a semicolon or a period, it is the punctuation to which you can use to separate 2 complete clauses, right? Not a comma. So anytime you encounter a question about punctuation on the SAT, it's basically having you finding out which one is the subject and which one is a verb, right? So that is how you're going to find out, like, even for tenses, even for past, present, and future kind of question, and even for plural or singular questions, you can base off of finding which one is the subject and which one is the verb. All right, carry on. About semicolon periods, that's it. To be honest, there's not much to talk about semicolon and periods, and also dashes. Remember, dashes, it can be used essentially like a comma, but with the exception of relative clauses, and a dash can be used at the end of a sentence, as opposed to a comma. It can't be used. All right, next up, I'm going to cover something about modifier. Oh, first, let's talk about parallel structure. And right, parallel structure, this is just a way of saying that when it happens with the word and with the list, everything inside or in between and or lists, it will have to be parallel to each other. For example, you have and. Let's use and as an example because it's way more easy to visualize. And before it, running and swimming. Right? This is how we're going to ensure the parallelism. And it will appear a lot on the SAT, only that you wouldn't notice it at first because these questions won't say that find the parallel structure that best fits. It won't say that, but it will say that fill in the blank or something. But you have to know that they are testing the parallel structure, and it is very common for an easy SAT question. Or was running and was swimming. That's the same thing. And also, you get the idea. You have to ensure the same form of verb in between these two. And also, not only verb, you have to ensure the same form of every single word. For example, adjective with adjective, verb for verb, and noun for noun, everything like such. Also lists. For example, running, swimming, and diving, or jumped, scared, screamed, or funny, relatable, and laughable. They have to be the same and they have to be parallel to each other. And the same thing goes for a longer type of kind of list and structure. For example, she is running on the field and swimming around the pool. That's also parallelism, but it's a bit longer. Or they found out that he was committing the crime and was trying to get away. You can see that was committing the crime and was trying to get away was the parallelism. Or if I say they found out he was committing a crime and sent him to jail. In this case, I'm going to give an example like this. They found out he was committing a crime. If I say and, there are two possible scenarios. Firstly, I can say and was running away. In this case, it would mean that he was committing and was running. And this is the parallelism. In this case, is between he and was running, committing and was running. But if I say, instead of and was running away, I can say that and send him to jail. What do you think the verb that is being parallel to in this case? Dian, can you tell me? What's the verb that's being paralleled in this case? All right. So in this case, it is found, right? Here. and sent him to jail is the same thing with found, is parallel to found. In this case, and was running away is parallel to was committing. All right. So here is just basically how to commit, how to find out whether or not they are parallel to each other. And it will be applicable to sentences or structures that are way more complicated. And we will see it soon and in the exercises part. Next up will be modifier. Oops. Modifier is basically what before that a clause, a dependent clause that supports a noun, or yes, a noun or a subject. Here you can see that if I say being young, he ran for president. Here, being young is a modifier because it modifies the word before or right after it. It has to modify the one word or one phrase before or after it. Okay, so in this case, being young is modifying the word he. And if I say having ran for president, Tom's advisor. Here, Tom was being advised. No, I'm trying to find a way that makes it wrong. Having run for president, a new law here, a new law was instantly passed by Tom. Here, in this case, is this correct or incorrect? Mike, do you think? Is it correct or incorrect?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. In this case, actually, it's not correct because having run for president, it is not modifying the word or the word new, right? So, Ving, can you rewrite this to make it correct for me?
Having ran for president, instantly passed a new law.
Exactly. Tom instantly passed a new law. In this case, which word is being modified?
Tom.
Exactly. The word Tom is the word being modified with having ran for president because a new law can't be running for a president, right? For presidency. The only thing that's applicable here is Tom. Okay, next up is appositive or complement clauses. Appositive can be understood as a modifier in the middle of a sentence, appositive. For example, she, Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, was famous, was one of the most famous of his time. All right, this is an appositive. So an appositive, there's something tricky about appositive because it is in the middle of a sentence. That's something related about the comma. When an appositive is an essential part of a sentence, it can't be used with commas. What is an essential part? Appositive is basically like a modifier, but it is just providing an information for the word before it or after it, right before or right after, without actually modifying it. So it's just providing an unknown information. In this case, the author of Sherlock Holmes is the unknown information. It's not modifying existing who Conan Doyle is. It's not changing who he is, right? But in this case, it's just providing additional information. And because this is providing additional information, does it specify who Conan Doyle is? Is Conan Doyle, if I remove this sentence, this part of the appositive, can I know who Conan Doyle is? Vinh, do you think? If I remove this, can I know who Conan Doyle is?
Yes.
Yes, why is it?
Because the text also already told that he was one of the most famous of yeah.
Of his
So
time?
yeah. So so we can remove that.
Okay, one of the most. That means that there are more people that are famous, right? So I'm not really sure who to say here, whether it's Conan Doyle or even Einstein. I don't know who it is because there are way more than one person. Do you know what I mean? When there's more than one person, when there are more than one person, we can't really specify who that really is. So in this case, one of the most famous is not really the one that's specifying the person, but it's the name. Okay, there can only be one Conan Doyle in English grammar. When you encounter a name, exactly like the insert, when you encounter a name, you can remove the appositive because it will not be necessary to understand who he is. So therefore, you can place two commas here. But if I say the other way around, the author of Sherlock Holmes and Conan Doyle, for example, let's assume one of the author, and Sherlock Holmes has a lot of co-authors in it, and I say Conan Doyle. Can I put commas here, or can't I? YouTubing.
No, we can remove that.
Why do we remove it?
If we remove the Conan Doyle, we cannot know who is what is one of the authors of Sherlock Holmes.
Exactly. So if I say the author of Sherlock Holmes, can I then place commas here? If I say just the author of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, comma, Conan Doyle, comma. Is it true? Or is it false?
True.
Why is it?
Is give the information to we can know who is the author of Sherlock Holmes.
So if I use comma here, just assume that I can basically remove the information in between the commas, right? But in this case, the word the author, how many authors are there?
One.
One, exactly. They're only one person. And the author of Sherlock Holmes, comma, Conan Doyle. If I remove the word Conan Doyle, I still know who the author of Sherlock Holmes is because there's only one person, right? So the author of Sherlock Holmes is the same as a name. It is definitive, and we can specify who that is precisely based on that word. In this case, the author. So if I say an author, is it still true? Can I use comma here?
I think no.
What is it?
It's that an authors, not the authors. It's not determine the authors.
So if I say an author, that means there are more than one author, and this one is just one of the author. Is basically the same thing as one of the most famous or one of the authors, right? So an is not a something that would indicate the special, something special. The is the word we look for. For example, the CEO, the King of England, the Queen of England, those the United States of America, those are the word the that plays the role of making the subject being singular, right? There's only one person, there's only one object like that in the entire world. That's why you can safely remove the name, right? So it's not always that you have to place the name inside of commas, or you do not, or it's not always that you can't use the commas in between names. It's that you have to specify whether or not the apostrophe is an essential part or non-essential part of yes, we can. We have to determine whether or not it is non-essential or is it essential part of a sentence that makes the sentence and gives it the meaning. So, all right, it's great. Next up, we will talk about relative clauses. It's basically who, where, which, who, where, which, why. This is the relative clause. I'm just mentioning this so that you would know the name in English, so that it will be easier to talk about later on. All right, next up is how to learn new words. How to learn new words in this case, in the case of the SAT, because we are moving forward the next week. From next week on, we only have five weeks left to do where, when, here, where, and when. Or, yes, we only have 5 weeks left to prepare for the SAT. So this is the stage which we have to focus on improving the SAT reading and writing section so that we can achieve the highest possible score. Because mathematics, you've done them quite well already. And obviously there will be a test tomorrow, and I will guide you through it in a second, so that you would know how to do it. The overall strategy, not thoroughly yet, but just the overall strategy that you can take for so that you can apply it to tomorrow's test. So it will be learn the new words. How you can learn the new words. I didn't teach you, actually I did teach you guys in the very first sessions, but since most of you here aren't at the first session, I'm going to repeat it. How to learn new words. So in English, it's not like maths. It's not like 1 is 1, 2 is 2, but actually it's more like a summation of everything. This in English, in maths, 1 is 1, 2 is 2, but in English, 2 is the result of 1 plus 1, right? For example, the words roommate. Here. Room, mate. Roommate. Here is the summation of 2 different words, and it makes up 1 word. Room and mate. All right. No, they are not similar, but they can be combined to make 1 word that has a bit of each meaning, each word's meaning. So firstly, here's you get room is a place you stay in, and mate is a friend, right? So roommate is friend who share the same abode, accommodation. So roommate is like that. And I have published words, for example, agriculture. Agriculture. Coach. I just misspelled it. Culture. Here, agriculture. The word agri means something about nature. So agriculture means the art of planting, right? This is what we would call learning the root, the Latin root of English. When we approach a new word, in Google, there's when you type in define, for example, agriculture. I'm going to make an example for you guys here. Hang on, just going to share this. All right. If I say define agriculture, it will give me this definition, and also look at this, the origin. You can see that English is not just one word, it's the combination of many words. Agriculture, agri and culture is cultivation, agri is field, about something nature. So agriculture is like growing in a field, and in Vietnamese it will be like this. Okay, that's how you're going to learn new words from now on. Firstly, do not look for translation directly, although it will show translation by default, but try not to look at it at first, but use the word define. Agriculture, I misspelled this. Use the word define. It will give out a Google, an Oxford Languages dictionary, and then read the similar words. This is how you're going to learn new words. Farming, cultivation, tillage, tilling, husbandry, crofting, agribusiness, and agronomy. They are the words that you can learn to kind of, for example, now you know what agriculture means. So that means that you know what tillage means, and you know what crofting means, right? And that is how you're going to learn new words. For example, I'm going to use the word obscene. Obscene. Here. So you haven't looked, try your best not to look at the Vietnamese translation yet before you read this. Obscene is like lack of decency. Firstly, you're going to read the definition in English. Do not read it in Vietnamese, because remember, we are learning English. We are not learning to be a language interpreter in which we're going to have to learn two languages at once, but we're only learning English right now. And language interpreters, I would find it difficult because I can't really use two languages at a time. But for most people, they don't really want to be a language interpreter, do you? So here, the other things that are the same meaning, they share the same meaning as obscene. Firstly, you're going to read the definition of this obscene. So this word is kind of like a bad word right now. To be honest, I didn't really expect it to be such a bad word. So I'm going to use another word, callous. Here. Callous is like a showing or having insensitive and cruel disregard for others. So you can look at the examples, and also you can look at the similarity: heartless, unfeeling, uncaring, cold, hard, cold-hearted, at heart as a snail, hard-hearted. And also you can look at the root. Sometimes there are some roots that are very popular, and there's you won't waste too much time looking into the roots, because you can learn, for example, instead of learning 100 new words, you can learn 100 roots, Latin roots, and that will be exponentially more when combined. So I have published the roots and the vocabulary on Google Classroom for you guys, so that you can approach it a bit easier. opening classwork, and then scroll down, you can see the SAT 1000 vocabulary. And this is the vocabulary for SAT and GRE. And it will be with Latin, Greek, and Greek roots. For example, abrasive, abaway, rust, scrape, if, like, things like this. Try to kind of read it for fun sometimes. If you don't really have anything to do for like 10 minutes, you can open this PDF and read through it, because it will help you tremendously. Epidermis, right? And that is how basically I learned new words when like 3 years ago. But on the SAT, you don't learn new words. Like, I'm saying that if you don't have anything else to do, you open this one up to learn. But I'm not really necessarily suggesting you to focus extensively on learning new words, because some people, they're mistaken for not having understood fully a paragraph, as opposed to they are lacking skills. So sometimes on the SAT, when you find it's difficult to do a problem, it's not that you haven't learned enough new words, but it's just that you haven't learned enough skills. Okay, so there's only one type of question that's testing new words, that is the word in context. That's the one field that will only test your vocabulary. And if it's not falling within that field, it's not the problem about your vocabulary, but the problem about your skills, the skill of POE and the skills of everything like that. Speaking of which, I'm going to move on to splitting question. What is splitting question, you may ask? It is separating the question into multiple pieces so that we can understand it more clearly, and then we can summarize it so we can read it a bit more quickly. Here, look, if I say, for example, we have this example question. You guys also read it with me, because I might or might not ask you about this. A common assumption among artists, firstly, we're going to have to read the question, the prompt. And we can see that based on the text, what can be concluded about the diminishing popularity of the portrait miniature in the 19th century. So this is about diminishing popularity. We have to find the clues about diminishing popularity, right? And so look, that is the one key. This is how we're going to split a question. We circle in, this is splitting question. We circle in one kind of phrase, and then we look extensively for this key. In this case, we can see that diminishing popularity is the key, and we look for it in the paragraph, okay? After we have spotted the key, we can look at it. A common assumption among art historians is that the invention of photography in the mid-19th century displaced the painted portrait in the public consciousness. The diminishing popularity of the portrait miniature, which coincided with the rise of photography, seemed to support this claim. However, photography's impact on the portrait miniature may be overstated. Although records from art exhibitions in the Netherlands from 1820 to 1892 show a decrease in the number of both full-size and miniature portraits submitted. This trend was established before the invention of photography. So this is the word author. Also, this is where you're going to have to pay most of your attention to, because the word also and the word however is very important. When you read a paragraph, you need to circle in the transition words, for example, or especially those that are suggesting the contradiction, like the word although. Or even, for example, is not really important, but the word although and however, and those words like suggesting contrasting a relationship, it will be the most important. They will be the most important. Look here, although records from art exhibition show a decrease, but this is not important. The thing important here is how we're going to use splitting questions or answer to define the POE to help us in the process of using POE. In this case, I'll go through A, B, C, and D. In fact, I'm going to read first, and then this is how we do it. We find the most important part, and the part that makes the question or the answer stands out from every other one. For example, factors other than the rise of photography may be more directly responsible for the portrait miniature decline. So here is factor other than the rise of photography is the first key. Or other factors may be more directly responsible, for the decline. Secondly, B is although portrait miniatures became less common than photographs, they were widely regarded as having more artistic metrics. So less common than photographs, widely regarded as more artistic merit. And C, the popularity of the portrait miniature likely persisted for longer than art historians have assumed. So popularity persisted for longer. And finally, as demand for portraits, miniature is decreased. Portrait artists likely shifted their creative focus to photography. So here are the things that separate each of the option from another. So you circle them in. Look, so in this case, I would say that although records from art exhibition show a decrease in the number of both full-size and miniature portraits submitting, this trend was established before the invention of photography. This is very important. So you know that photography is not the sole reason, the sole causation of the decline in miniature portraits. So which one of the four talks about photography is not the reason? Can anyone guess? Which one is about photography is not the only reason? Okay, here is the question, option A. Look, factors other than the rise of photography may be more directly responsible for the decline of portrait miniature. So you can see that it is talking about the decline, which factors other than the rise of photography and more directly responsible. And how can I spot it as quickly as possible? I'm not going to reread the entire thing, but I will read what I have splitted. The only thing that I care about is the splitted questions or answer. Factors other than the rise of photography here, the factors here, or when I try to POE, I look as demand for miniature, demand decreased, creative focus to photography, wrong. The popularity persisted for longer, popularity, wrong. This is not talking about how the photography is affecting the miniature portrait. And B, although portrait miniature became less common than photographs, they were widely regarded as more artistic merit. Became less popular. This might be true. More artistic merit. This is not related to what we're looking for. Okay, so that is how splitting question or answer is not the way for you to eliminate what is not important. It's just one way for you to read the options and read the questions quicker. You circle in the important details. So on your computer, you won't be able to circle in like I did, but you can do it with your eyes, because that is essentially how most of the SAT test takers do it. You're gonna move your cursor around like this, factors into this, and you just make a mental note of what is important and what is not. This is not a method that you're going to have to do. It's a mentality. It's one step before you do POE, and this is the step of reading the options, and this is how you're going to read and always try to conclude an option. For example, A, read it, and then before trying to POE, you try to look for the main distinction of the option A, right? So read factors other than the rise of photography may be more directly responsible. So I can see that factors other than the rise of photography and more directly responsible, they are the thing that that takes the most emphasis out of this option. And the same thing goes for less common than photographs and more artistic merit and things like that. That is how you're going to do it. Okay, the next one I'm going to ask Beck to do this. Can you do this for me? I'm going to give you like 3 minutes. Okay, it's very simple. It's very easy. 3 minutes and do this. Right, have you come up with your own answer yet? Has it been 3 minutes yet?
No.
Are you finished?
No.
And also Ving and Dian, you can type in your answer in the chat. I want to see what the answer you're trying to come up with. Right, have you come up with your answer? Have you finished reading the entire paragraph? Oh, wait, I think I haven't been able to hear you. Hang on a second. Hear you. Hang on a
What?
second. Okay. Right, here. Can you repeat yourself? I haven't heard you.
Uh,
Are you saying something?
B.
Okay, B or D?
B.
The second or the fourth one?
The second one.
Okay, let's see. Firstly, can you just separate the option A, B, C, and D for me? What is the most important thing about A?
Most important thing about A is like home fanciful features. Can like unsustainable.
Yes, it is unsustainable and rejuvenating. These are the most important thing about the question A, the option A. Secondly, B. How about B?
B is disorienting and simulating.
Disorienting places. This is just the same thing, just trying to rephrase the environment that they're testing. It's not really the important thing because every A, B, C, and D, they all talk about the disorienting places, spaces like this, because the main focus of the paragraph is this place, right? You don't always need to have two clauses. you can choose the one most important clause in this case, effective place to create a physically most effective way to create a physically stimulating environment. The main idea of the text, remember, what is the main idea of the text? It is talking about how a strange place can enhance personal well-being. And see, look, as a filmmaker, Yao Maka has long supported the design of conceptual artists such as Jin and Arakawa has long supported the designs. Supported the design is the key here. So you can see that it's not really talking about the supported design, but indeed, let's have a look. Although impractical, improve the well-being. Okay, it's not always at the last place, it's not always at the beginning, or not always in the middle, but it is the most important piece of information that distinguishes the one option to the other three, right? So in this case, the correct answer is let's see, believing is D, right? Because let's have a look. B is incorrect because most effective design. This is not talking about the paragraph. This is not the main idea of the paragraph. It's not talking about the stimulating environment, but it's talking about the benefit of these environment. So D is the only thing that talks about impracticality. Look, it's very impractical. A door that leads to nowhere, a ceiling has a door to nowhere. It's not practical. It's not usable, but it improves the well-being of the building's resident. The effect is, after 4 years, has reported significant health benefit. Right? It's quite difficult at first, but you're going to have to get used to it. And you're going to get used to it in no time, like 1 week at max. And then the later time, you can do it in autopilot. I mean, you can do it like without even thinking about it. Right, next up is this one. I'm going to ask Ving to do this. And also back and then you can send in your information in the chat box.
The answer is A.
Okay, why is A, do you think?
In the text, it says that the ecologists worry about the crowd is declining when the animal is grazing, and the trunk swings maybe prevent. It's just that. Yes.
Okay, yes, exactly. The only thing that worries the scientists, the ecologists, is the declining population of this kind of organism because of the grazing of animals. Now, fences can't be related to animals because, look, this is precisely what they stated in the paragraph. It's not growing at the same rate as it used to. And let's apply the way that we read the options like we have just learned, splitting questions. It isn't the same rate. Young trees can't grow because it's blocked by fences. Root can't support any more new tree. Here. And the only thing that's makes sense the most is A, because this question is quite short. So this doesn't bring you much of an information, much of a insight when splitting questions and answer. But in longer options like this, or like this one, or even 2 lines or 3 lines and things like that, it can be very helpful if you like lost grasp of where you're reading. If you find it difficult, try to find the most important part of question and answer and then circle it, or just make a mental note because you can't really circle it on the SAT. So try to do it first before actually doing the POE. And of course, you can be dynamic, you can be flexible about it because this is your exam and you do what feels right to you the most. You can eliminate one step or another if you feel confident enough, but do not do it if you feel like you're kind of on the fence, you don't know if A or B is the correct option. You're going to have to rely on every single skill that I've taught you. So my skills is just a backup option for your skills, all right? So what you've learned is not what you will do, but what you've learned is what will guarantee that you will not fail, okay? And we move on to the next question. This will be I'm going to ask back to do this one. You have to pay extra attention to this. Back, you read this question and do it for me.
Yes.
Also, Ving, and then you can send in your answers if you come up with it already. It's a bit difficult, isn't it? But remember, use every single skill that I've taught you, and it will work in some way, in one way or another. First, you're gonna have to look for the student's claim. And then even something that's remotely talking about the claim will be true. You POE and you get rid of those that are not talking about what the student's claim is talking about. That's the first step. And then you eliminate the ones, for example, if you have already eliminated the 2 questions that are not talking about the student's claim, then you can continue to proceed about the detail. But the first thing is about the relation to the claim. But can you tell me what is the claim?
The claim, explanatory notes.
Can you read it out loud?
The explanatory notes were included in the republication primarily as a marketing device to help sell the standalone volume.
Okay. Explanatory notes were included in the republication primarily as a marketing device to help sell the standalone volume. So do you know what this means? Can you summarize it for me?
So
Can you explain it for me?
the explanatory note in the standalone volume is for marketing.
It's only for marketing to help boost the sale, to make more money, basically. So which one is talking about, firstly, the explanatory notes, and secondly, help sell the standalone volume? Is it A, the text of a poem as published in a quarterly is not identical to the text of the poem published in the standalone volume, or B, many critics believe that the poet's explanatory notes remove certain ambiguities of the poem, and C, the publishers of the standalone volume requested the explanatory notes from the poets in order to make the book more attractive to readers who already had a copy, or D, correspondence between the 2 poets reveals that the poet's explanatory notes went through several drafts.
B,
Which one talks about this?
C.
C. Specifically which part of C?
Attractive to readers.
Exactly. Attractive to readers who already had a copy. You can see, already have a copy, and then they buy another one. That means monetary values, monetary benefits. You get more money. Yeah, that's precisely it, because it's that easy. Next one is, again, this part. Let's circle back to Ving. Can you do this for me? And also back, and then you give out your answer in the chat also. You haven't given the answer in the last question, so try to give your question now back in the chat, right? What do you think is the claim, Ving?
A claim is Khaled has a particular talent for unifying various artistic traditions and styles.
So here is the important bit. Unifying various artistic traditions and styles in her work. This is the bit. So can you just eliminate each question, each option? Have you POE some options already?
APV C and D.
C and D, all right, these are out. What makes you just puzzled over A and B? What's keeping you up? What's keeping you off?
In the insights is said that she used the ancient indigenous techniques and combine the visuals. And in answer base is that she's overlay fabric onto the canvas. So I'm not sure.
Onto the canvas to represent clothing of a father and toddler. So can you find me which one talks about various traditions and various styles? Is it A or B? This is what I'm circling in, artistic tradition and styles. And this is one fabric onto the canvas to represent the clothing of a father and his toddler positioned to evoke classic images of a mother and a child. Is it talking about traditions? Other traditions, 2 or more traditions? Remember the word various. Various means a lot, right? So it has to talk about multiple traditions.
No.
So is it A or B?
A.
A. Because what tradition are they talking about?
Mexicans, German.
Yes, Mexican and German. These are the various traditions it's talking about. So you can see that the importance of picking the keys, of choosing and separating the ideas. So this one is talking about the claim. So we don't really have to find the key in the question in the prompt, but we have to find the key in the claim itself. What is the main point of the claim? The main point is about artistic traditions, various artistic traditions. So we base off of one word to come up with your own answer. Various means more, 2 or more traditions and styles. That means Mexican and German. And you can see B, it doesn't talk about any about traditions, and C, it doesn't talk about any tradition also. How about D? It might look like it talks about some culture, some traditions, but it only talks about one tradition, one culture, and these are the works of art. These are not the culture, right? So A is the correct answer. Okay, good. I think you're going to have to use a bit more practices in preparation for completing this kind of skill, to get used to this skill. And it won't be too arduous for you, like in the next, after 1 week of practicing. I'm sure you can do it great. And I've already published a lot of books that I've chosen that is quite, is close enough to the actual SAT, so that you can use it as a material so that you can practice as much as possible. And also I want to mention, and I want to remind you about tomorrow's exam. You're going to take it on the Blue Book SAT app. On the Blue Book app, the practice test 1 or 2. You do 2 if you've already done 1, practice test 1, and you do 1 if you haven't done the practice test 1. Okay, do the earliest practice test that you haven't done tomorrow at 8 a.m. And remember, the most important thing is, wait, I think I'm going to walk through the entire thing for you guys again to be sure, because I'm not at all sure about back, especially because you failed to do the last time because of some errors apparently. Firstly, you can see I'm going to share my screen entirely. When you go to the Blue Book app, I am suggesting back to pay extra attention here. Blue book, you open it, and you can see that sign in with a student College Board account, or use a ticket from your school. You sign in with a student College Board account. If you haven't created already, go to College Board, like this one, my SAT College Board. Just type in College Board, and it will bring you a page of the SAT, and then you create your own account in it. And in my case, I've already created it. So here I'm going to pause sharing for a bit, and I'm going to type in my password. So at Gmail. All right, let's resume the sharing. Here, you can choose to do the full length practice and then choose SAT. Of course, you're not doing the PSAT. Practice as 1 or 2, depending which one you haven't done. I'm going to choose 1. Oh no, I'm going to choose 2 because I've already done 1. This one is only for disabled students only, so don't choose it unless you're disabled, in which case you are not. And continue. Next. It will send you to a page. This will be the entire suite. This will be what you're looking at when you're taking the SAT. It's exactly like this. The entire interface is like this. So this is the time I'm sure you've known it already. And then this is the review page and unanswered for review and things like that, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's nothing much. I'm just saying that you have to put your time before everything. Accuracy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as the time. Because if you are like 100% sure of one question and you spend like 5 minutes on that question, it doesn't matter because you're going to lose points either way. More points than ever. So try your best. This is my mantra. Try your best to do 80% accuracy. Don't care about the rest 20%. You're going to accept a certain risk. You won't be able to be correct 100% of all time. So try your best to do as many questions as you deem possible. For example, this question, don't tell me that you can't do this question, all right? This very simple kind of question like this, you have to do correct at all time. Like this one also, you can see it's very simple. Standard English convention, they are very simple, and it's most likely going to be at the back of the book of the module, each module. And do not use annotate, it's going to waste your time. And also, yeah, I'm going to save an exit because I'm not going to finish this right away. And that's it. That's basically it. And I'm sure you've already done the SAT already. Just to be sure, try to focus on doing as many questions as possible as opposed to doing right one question. You have to spend like 2 or 3 minutes going through the entire module and try to do from bottom up, because in the latter part will be easier questions and it will prep you up for actually doing the more difficult questions in the beginning. So try your best to go through the entire module and find the ones that are the easiest to you to do, and then do it. Try your best to not overthink, or try your best to not spend too much time in doing one specific question, right? Allocate your time smartly and then you'll do great. Okay, do you guys have any more questions for today or tomorrow's exam? Tomorrow will be at 8 a.m. and I will expect you guys to send me the score at about 11. Okay. Have you guys any questions? Okay, if you haven't any question, that concludes our class for today. And I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye.